Thank you for the introduction, Amirul. Yes, I'm Norliza Hashim, and I actually am the CEO of Urbanist Malaysia. We are a company limited by guarantee under the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, and these are some of the core works that we looked at. And in particular, we are championing the SDGs localization for Malaysia. So I think in today's topic is a very interesting topic because it's actually where we are today, in the situation where all of us are locked down, and tomorrow will be a even heavier lockdown. And I think this is actually a very challenging time for everyone. And I think this discussion, I managed to hear some of the discussion this morning. We can see that so much efforts have been done to date just to address the situation that we are in. So since January 2020, when we first had our case, I don't think we ever imagined that we'll be here, in 2021, still having to go through the lockdown situation. But what's also interesting to note is that if you look at all the cases that we have, definitely a lot of the cases, most of the cases that we have are also where the urban areas are located, where states have the most populated population. And this is where almost 63% of the cases we have are actually in states like Selangor, the Federal Territory, Johor, and Penang. But that's obvious because Malaysia is definitely an urban nation. Our urbanization rate is at 78.9% last year, with a population of 32 million. So when we talk about COVID-19 or the pandemic itself, definitely cities are the front line to respond to this COVID-19 crisis. And in Malaysia, we have about 320 numbers of towns and cities where 25.5 million of our population are residing. So what started as a health crisis is actually turned into a socio-economic crisis, and I'm sure those numbers and statistics were reflected by the panelists just now. But just to reflect, when we talk about a socio-economic crisis, we talk about unemployment, and we talk about how much our gross development produce have declined over just this 1.5 year that we are going through this pandemic. And the most crucial, which actually affects everyone, is actually the decrease in income, where it's recorded that a salary cut of 5 to 15% is being experienced by some of the people in Malaysia today. And I think there has been many studies done and how this impacted our communities, especially our vulnerable communities. And it's actually quite of a concern to see that some of the issues includes food security, malnutrition, besides unemployment, and also, of course, the financial standings, which will only last them a month. And of course, some of the concerns as to the mental health of the children that's actually within the vulnerable community. And for household led by female, it is also recorded that almost 30% of them are unemployed, and more than 50% of them actually has no access to social securities. So these are things which I think are quite concerning. And we in Urbanist also, we actually take care of some of the public low-cost housing areas in Kuala Lumpur and Selangor. And we actually did some surveys, and definitely this was also reflected in the surveys that we did in the communities that we helped to oversee. And a lot of them are also reporting emotional stress during the lockdown. So I think when we talk about all these issues, it is always the bottom 40 that we are always concerned about. And these issues are really real today. But if there's anything that we can clap our hands, would be how the lockdown has actually improved our environment during this whole COVID-19 situation. We had a record of KL, Putrajaya with air quality improvement. And even in Kuala Lumpur, you can see the nitrogen dioxide levels have actually reduces significantly, and most of these are contributed by transportation, activities of manufacturing. So the only colors that you see, yellow or orange in 2020, those are our power plant areas. And studies by Harvard universities also show that where cities with high level of pollutant, the severity of the case of COVID in terms of breathing issues are also higher. So if even if we are in a situation today where there are times when our transportation goes back to normal, but I think what is of a good data and statistic is that how such a situation have helped improve our air quality. It has actually helped to improve our urban heat island. That means to say that if you look at during the lockdowns, where the commercial areas are, it became cooler. But where the residential areas are, it became warmer because people were actually working from home, air conditioning was running. So these kind of statistics are quite important because it will show you if we are to make a difference moving forward, how do we take advantage of all these opportunities that COVID has shown us, on how to improve our environment. And we also saw some concern in terms of waste, where waste actually increases during the lockdowns. Not only in terms of the medical waste, it was said that Malaysia itself, had a high increase of medical waste up to 210 tons. But in fact, from plastic waste, we ourselves did some sampling surveys in Kuala Lumpur, and from the 23% of plastic waste, we had some almost 10% of COVID-19 related waste. So I think these are real issues that has to be of concern. And we were also fortunate to actually work on a small project where we assisted the United Nations Economic and Social Commission to look at cities in Asia Pacific to see how they were responding to the pandemic. So we undertook the task to actually speak to Subang Jaya and try to understand what were some of their recovery measures that was done. And what was very important to take note was that priorities for recovery was actually managing crisis on the ground. So even though there was this vertical integration in terms of bringing in the economic stimulus package from the federal, subsidization by the state government, and some small funds that was provided, it was definitely still not enough to actually understand and overcome what the local communities were facing. So Subang Jaya actually had a response center. They had an operational room just for COVID-19, and they also mapped out the infected individual residential location. I think this is very important, and this was linked to the Selangkah state tracing software. And this is also to ensure that should any areas require some form of stronger control, this center is able to provide a faster response to the neighborhood. So data, crowdsource data and information is definitely something which is very important. Besides doing all the immediate response like providing food, helping to sew PPEs, looking at disinfection. But most important, which is a local council, it was actually not their responsibility, but you can see that they are now looking at how to also provide funds and initiatives for small local entrepreneur. And this even includes looking at how to legalize some of the informal activities, developing or creating food hubs, facilitating food delivery programs, and even teaching some of these skills to the people. So if you look at what local councils traditionally do, this is definitely not in their agenda, and it's also not in their budget. So hence, during this very challenging time, it is definitely, you can see that how flexible our organizations are in terms of refocusing their energy into things which are new to them. So what's important moving forward is actually what this subject that we are going to talk about, which is building city resilience in overcoming what the future entails. I'm not sure, how much we will win in the future. I'm also not sure that when we talk about normal, it will still be life with COVID. So because of that, whatever we do in this post-crisis efforts, it must be all about improving the people's life, stimulate whatever form of innovation so that we could actually shift our behavioral to make our cities more resilient. So it's important to rethink about cities and what are the urban policies that we need to redo. And we also need to have this new urban paradigm where whatever we do, it needs to be more inclusive, green, and smart. And also, whatever solutions that we have, it must be not only be place-based or location-based, but it must be people-centered in terms of its approaches. So the fundamentals of the global goals, which is the Sustainable Development Goals, the Sendai Framework, the Climate Change Agenda, and the New Urban Agenda are all very important to ensure that we align this thought process so that it's within the correct framework. So I would look at this new in terms of developing this resilience for cities. I look at these 6 areas where it's very important to set a long-term strategy towards living with this COVID-19. One is to look at a more inclusive recovery. And this means how do we address the already existing social inequality that's happening. Second is having this green recovery, so it represents a clear opportunity on how we make our cities and also its economy greener. A smart recovery, using technology, digitalization as a pivotal role to overcome the emergency responses to the pandemic. Urban planning and design, which is very crucial to how we revisit our design and based on the sustainability agenda and resiliency. And 2 cross-cutting elements, which is governance, very important for us to be transparent, accountable, responsive, as well as having that participatory process all along the way. And of course, finance, which is very important, and how we embed this in the whole development process. So this is something which is very important. And when we talk about inclusive recovery, one of the most important thing is if you look at what's happening now, with all the manufacturing stagnant, the most important at surviving now is actually the local businesses. So there must be more support for local businesses and employment. And the emerging economies of shared economy, digital economy, and creative economy suddenly become so crucial, because these are what the masses, where we have the people out of labor jobs, they are the ones that are not only impacted, but they are the one most resilient to actually change whatever that they are doing. So these new emerging technologies, require our support in terms of having the provision of more quality and affordable office spaces. And maybe we can repurpose some of our buildings, so that they can have the facilities and enhance infrastructure. And of course, how do we create ecosystems that can also strengthen all these activities together? And at the same time, it is also a good opportunity, of late we see the emphasis by a lot of governments or state governments or cities to have more affordable homes. But I think it is also time and a good opportunity not only to provide affordable home, but more equitable home. That means to say that we look at the income groups, address the gaps that we have in all the cities that we have, understand that we are moving into an aging society, and we have people who are also homeless. We also have foreign workers, and we have the young population moving into cities. So the kind of houses that we provide, should be more diversified, and they must be at accessible locations where it will reduce the cost of transportation for these people. And this is where also the opportunity to develop more eco homes, homes which are more energy efficient, water efficient, manages its waste, and is more cost effective to maintain. And we already have cities which are doing this very well, especially our neighbor Singapore. And of course, another thing which is very close to my heart is actually developing more socially responsive home, where homes should not be, segregating different kind of income levels, but how do we live in a community that actually does not segregate the differences between levels of income, so that we can have a more socially responsive community in our areas. And one of the other thing when we talk about inclusive recovery is also understanding the vulnerable population. And this, as you can see from the data just now, one of the issue we have is also malnutrition. So I think Malaysia has been quite responsive in this. So a lot of land now which are not well utilized have been turned into urban farms, and Kuala Lumpur is also doing very well in this. And this is where I think it must not just be a temporary measure. We must move and formalize this sector, allowing it to happen in a more organized and managed, properly managed ways, so that urban farms, urban farm to business can also happen within these areas. And the communities which are vulnerable, they are all kinds of people that are actually helping them. So what we did in Urbanis also during the pandemic last year in March, we also created a platform which we call the Collaborative Community Resilient Platform. In this platform, we actually highlight a lot of the work done by all kinds of people. And the idea is so that there's more sharing, so that we don't have to reset or learn from zero. We can learn from each other. And I believe that together, if we do this together, we can actually overcome the issues in a much stronger manner. So this is something that we really hope people will actually not only visit our platform, but also participate in it and share the work that good people are doing towards enhancing the resiliency of our community. And when we talk about green recovery, one of the key issues which you saw just now is how transportation has actually improved air quality. And many cities are actually very motivated by the situation of cleaner air. And because of that, more and more cities now are, really going and investing into sustainable urban mobility. They are investing in bike lanes, improving their public transport systems, and also investing in low emission transport options such as electric vehicles and scooters. So you have a city like Rome, the ancient city of Rome, even approving scooter guidelines. You have South Korea deploying the self drive car and robotic delivery. And of course, Kuala Lumpur itself, we've actually developed our bicycle and pedestrian master plan. And we hope, and even Seattle closing 20 miles of their residential street just to allow for safer street and less emission. So it doesn't mean that when we are going back, with COVID, there was a knee-jerk reaction. People were scared in the beginning to take public transport. But I think we need to look at the bigger gain, and the bigger gain in this case is the environment. And for that, sustainable urban mobility is an important agenda. And energy efficiency is also another green recovery strategy that must be adopted. And for this, over the last 1 year, I have observed more and more cities and nations making a lot of commitment. Denmark, of course, going for 100% renewable energy. Singapore, targeting 2 gigawatt peak by 2030, which is providing clean energy to 350,000 households. South Korea as well, and even Malaysia, we have increased our RE targets 20%. And what I like most is this small town in Lille, France, which actually provided funds to allow for renovation for social homes and private homes to actually fuel up with more RE or energy efficient equipment. So in Urbanese, we are also working on this clean energy for affordable homes. So we are looking at how we can provide our PPR and our public housing with cleaner energy, and in return, they can also help to gain some kind of income to help them manage their common areas. And one of the other things that is very important is green spaces. We were social distancing has become the new norm now. And and a lot of people were saying that you can't go to parks, but today, as you can see, it is actually these public spaces that have become more important of late. And because of that, you can see cities now just improving their green open space ratio. And Malaysia should similarly go for this, because one person does need a usable space of 9 square meters. So we need to look at how we reclaim green areas in order for us to have a cleaner environment in the future. There was a lot of talk also in terms of densities, but I think this is something that studies have also shown that actually densities is not the real cause of the pandemic. But it's something to be wary about as to how we design our buildings and relook at that. Digitalization have actually changed and has been very helpful in this very challenging time. And you can see how cities have actually done hackathons and developed all kinds of challenges. And you can see that the number of topics being discussed is actually just also quite widespreading. And even people talking about bringing in drones and so forth into the discussion. And even us here in Malaysia, bringing in the education system back through television is something very encouraging. But what's also very, very interesting is that the amount of discussion on digitalization has actually differed from region to region. And this shows the importance of these issues are not the same in every area. And we in Urbanese have also started this digital literacy program, and where I think the previous panelists also raised that this is still an issue. So we really hope to actually work with all kinds of companies to make this achievable. And another thing which is also important is that at the end of the day, the communities need to be part of this whole process or whatever plans that we prepare. And because of that, community action plans are important. Being gender responsive is also very important, and this is where in Urbanese we are also promoting gender responsive budgetary process through a more participatory process to bring the discussion among stakeholders locally. And I think at the end of the day, I'm almost to the end of my slide. Every city now, I guess, have to prepare their own blueprint towards sustainability and resiliency. So of late, you see a lot of cities, they have so many blueprints. But what we are promoting in Urbanese is actually for cities to prepare their sustainable development blueprint, where the whole agenda to address the pandemic, also to bring in the resilience strategy, are all embedded in this. Because at the end of the day, if you look at it, addressing some of the goals, and making the goals interrelated with one another could actually overcome some of the issues that most cities are facing today. So I hope with that it provides you an overview on how if we are to really overcome these issues, we do need to actually have a more holistic overview on how to address some of the challenges that cities are facing as a frontliner to the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ponlisa, on a very great insight over there. And of course, at the same time, right, Ponlisa, we do have, interesting questions coming from the audience as well. Perhaps we can wrap up the session by maybe answering one of two questions from the audience. So the first one that I have right here would be from Muhammad Amir, Distribution and Customer Service Safety Manager, Linde Company. Could you put more light on green recovery as mentioned earlier on, right? What was the target and where are we right now and what are the challenges and how your organizations mitigate the challenges? Over to you, Ponlisa.
Yeah, I think in terms of green recovery, well, Malaysia, as we have a lot of policy with regards to green. We have the climate change targets. We also have the renewable energy targets, but we've not really brought them in together for the purpose of addressing COVID. That's something which is, I think, not really well articulated. But what I see is that, what I guess from my point of view here, as where the cities are, they now are where most of the issues are. Hence, they need to set their targets at the local area. So localization of all these policies and targets at the local area is most important. For example, Kuala Lumpur now targets 30% renewable energy in all their new buildings that's going to come. They want the buildings to have features, green features, renewable energy features in their building, energy efficient features. And we also target 20 square meters per person for green areas in Kuala Lumpur. So these are targets that cities can actually do, because they have the ability to know what's the issue on the ground, what the people need. But if you talk about the national targets were actually prepared not at the time of the pandemic, but so the localization needs to be done now.